evening, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and we have a great show for you guys today where we will be talking about all things that are going on in the conference finals as they did just wrap up. Now we're on our way to the Stanley Cup Finals, so we will be previewing that in our final segment of the night as well and talking about each team and how they got there in all of the rest of the segments. I'm looking forward to this one. We finally got the team set for the finals. I'm excited for that one. It's a great matchup as well. We'll get right into that, but before we get into all of that, all the hockey sides of things, first we got to get down to business a little bit here. If you would like to help out the GSMC Sports Network in any way possible, using the tips and donations link would be the best way for us. It helps all the creators out here a lot, and it gets you a chance at asking me a question that I can read live on air. So tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net that you see right at the bottom of the screen. But without further ado, we are going to get right into the Rangers and Panthers Game 6 on Saturday, and that game led to this photo right here. The Florida Panthers are your Eastern Conference Finals champions. They do it now for the second year in a row and the third time in their franchise history. Yes, this is the third time that they have gone to the Cup Finals, not winning either of the previous two, once in the 90s and again last year. So for the Florida Panthers, this is huge for them. They've been a team for a very long time, about 50 years, a little bit over 50 years now. So for them to go to the Stanley Cup Finals here is a big thing for their franchise, especially because a few years ago, just like 10 years ago, they were talking about moving. Couldn't fill the arena, and now they're in their back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals with a really great chance at winning this one, going up against the team that we'll be talking about in our second segment. I'll leave you guys a little bit in suspense, although I know all of you guys already know who it is. But in this game, it was one goal against again. Sergei Bobrovsky shut down the New York Rangers, absolutely dominated this series, and he is very, very much the reason that the Florida Panthers are going to the Stanley Cup Finals. They're a fantastic team, but Sergei Bobrovsky has made them an elite team. So, absolute steal job by Sergei Bobrovsky. This has been him in these playoffs the last 2 years. It's been a trend in the playoffs, I guess, for goaltenders to just, win their team games. And the Panthers got more of those from their goaltender, and that's why they won the 12th game before the New York Rangers did. It was huge for the Florida Panthers. This game was a dominant performance from start to bottom, or from top to bottom, start to bottom. It is. What else can you say about it besides the Florida Panthers absolutely deserved this one. 2-1 is the win. Not getting a lot of offense in this one, but they didn't need a lot of offense. The New York Rangers, not a lot of offense when they do need a lot of offense. 7 goals in 5 games. If you take out that game 3, that's very disappointing. A little bit over a point per game for a team that really dominated teams offensively this year. 7th in the league this year in points or goals for per game at 3.39. So to get 1 goal in back-to-back games and only 7 goals in 5 games, such a disappointing effort from the New York Rangers, and that's why they're out, and that's why the Florida Panthers are your Eastern Conference champions. You just got to hand it to them. The Florida Panthers just had a better game plan throughout the entire conference finals. They played more physical, faster hockey than the New York Rangers did. The Rangers really relied on a lot of talent in this one, but the old additive goes, hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. And you could kind of see that from the New York Rangers. Not saying that they, were lazy, but the Panthers definitely outworked them in this series. Forecheck was great for the Florida Panthers. It was really, really fantastic. So, going into the game breakdown a little bit of this particular game, Sam Reinhart is the one that opens the scoring. 50 seconds into it, no goals. For the next 40 minutes, went through a huge drought here after an opening goal with the first 50 seconds, and then Tarasenko is the one that doubles the lead. He was excellent in this game. Pretty good in the series overall was Tarasenko. But you gotta tip your hat to Sergei Bobrovsky in this one. The Rangers scored very late into this one on an empty net or with their net empty. It's Artemi Panarin that scores late. But it's too little too late once again. I mean, you saw it with the Alexis Lafreniere goal a couple days ago, and you're seeing it again with our Artemi Panarin goal here. You are not going to win games by scoring your first goal or your second goal very, very late into the game. So, unfortunate for the New York Rangers. They too little too late again. Only one goal in this game, and only, not a single goal for 59 minutes in this one. Yeah, I mean, you're going to lose. And they did. And the Florida Panthers capitalized on this one. Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, a little bit of talking to you. Bad. It was bad play. Those guys, put shots on net, but not productive shots. It was, just all around just a disappointing play from the New York Rangers, but you don't expect that from your top six, right? In the Eastern Conference Final, you expect these guys to kind of go off, and Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad, outside of that Game 5, were horrid. They got 2 points each in that Game 5. Got the goals, Chris Kreider got two. Chris Kreider got a goal and assist. Mika Zibanejad had 2 assists. But outside of that, not a single point in the entire series for those two. That's so disappointing. I mean, those two need to be, your top guys, and they just weren't. Vincent Trocheck was also not that great in this series after a fantastic postseason. Started off pretty strong in this series against the Panthers, but really, it was their depth forwards that scored. Alexander Wenberg was the one that got the OT winner for them. Alexis Lafreniere played very well throughout this series. I think he had 4 goals in it, or 3 to 4 goals in this series. So disappointing play from your top 6, and your defense not getting offensive production, but they also, they're only allowing 2 goals a game. It's really just your top 6. That's what we're looking at here, with a lot of the blame, and rightfully so. And it's their power play that was horrid. Just this entire series, the power play was not clicking. They got a few goals on the power play, but for one of the best power plays in the league, it was really, really disappointing for them. So that's it for the game breakdown. Going into my first star of the game, and it has to be Sergei Bobrovsky. I said his name in the first minute of talking about this game and this series, and it needs to be said again. He got one of the stars of the series, I think 3 out of the 4 games that I was doing it. Yeah, Sergei Bobrovsky was very impressive. 23 saves on 24 shots against, and above 950 save percentage. Once again, Sergei Bobrovsky dominated this one, and he rightfully deserves the first star. He's been their guy, and I think that's one of the key matchups for next series. We talked about it being one of the key matchups for this series between Igor Shesterkin and Sergei Bobrovsky, and I think that it tells us a lot about the goaltenders when you're looking at the final scoreline of this series. 4-2 to the Florida Panthers is how this series ends, and Sergei Bobrovsky beat Igor Shesterkin 4 games out of 6, and that's why they won. He was fantastic. In the games, 7 goals in 5 games if you take out that Game 3 overtime win for the New York Rangers. I think in the games that they won, he gave up 5 goals. Yeah, I think he gave up 5 goals in the 4 games that they won. He dominated. 1 goal, 2 goals is nothing more you could say about that besides absolutely domination from your number 1 goaltender, from the guy that most of the last 2 seasons been looking over his shoulder with Spencer Knight there, being like, I need to outplay him because he could be taking my spot at any moment. Really deserving all of that $10 million contract. Sergei Bobrovsky, 23 saves on 24 shots against, 961 save percentage, I believe that it comes out to. So very, very impressive from Bob. Now, Vladimir Tarasenko gets the game-winning goal on the official scorecard, takes his team up to 2-0 with a third-period goal. Only 1 point, and when you're looking at the offensive production, nobody really had great production, but you got to give it to Vladimir Tarasenko. It was a great goal that he scored to get this, to get the win for the Florida Panthers, to secure that dub. When you're in the third period and you're only up 1, you're really looking for that insurance, and he provided that for them, and it was a huge goal. So for the Florida Panthers, they have a lot to thank for Vladimir Tarasenko, because without that goal, it's going into overtime. and the New York Rangers had momentum with that goal by Artemi Panarin. So it's a different game if Vladimir Tarasenko doesn't get that third period goal. Although when you look at the goal, it seems like a nothing goal. But once again, he gets the official game-winning goal, and it was a huge one, for his team. He's been bouncing around the league as of late. Went from the Blues, went to Ottawa. He was most recently on. Kind of the talk of the trade deadline. And for a team like Florida to go out and get him, he's term provider. He's been playing second and third line for them, and he's been getting it done. So Vladimir Tarasenko, you gotta tip your hat to the former Cup winner on the St. Louis Blues in 2019, who really led his team. Former NHL cover athlete as well. Vladimir Tarasenko, such a brilliant player, and he provides once again for his team. So Florida Panthers are your Eastern Conference champions. Immediate reactions to that are, it's so impressive for the franchise to be able to get this done. It's a great job by their veterans that have been on the team for a very long time. Right, we're talking Aaron Ekblad, we're talking Alexander Barkov. Sam Reinhart's been on this team for a good while. Sam Bennett's been on this team for a good while. So for all of these guys, very great for them. Very impressive. And a little tidbit of this Stanley Cup Finals, the first 4 picks in the 2014 draft, which would be Aaron Ekblad's draft, all are playing in this Cup Final. 3 of the 4 being Aaron Ekblad, Sam Reinhart, and Sam Bennett, if I'm not mistaken. For the Florida Panthers, the other one being 3rd overall to the Edmonton Oilers, it's Leon Draisaitl, who is the best of the bunch, clearly, but he's the only one playing on a different team than the Panthers. So it's a fun little fact going into the Stanley Cup Finals, looking at that 2014 draft class. Might do a little recap of how that has shaped out the league when we get into the offseason. I think that'd be a fun segment, looking at each of the draft classes. But yeah, for the Florida Panthers, very impressive what they were able to do here. Back-to-back Eastern Conference Final champions. Get to hang a banner no matter what at the end of the season. So they're going to be excited. Going into the Stanley Cup Final, you just beat the President's Trophy winner. So we'll talk about what that could mean when it comes down to our 5th segment when we are previewing the Stanley Cup Finals, because I think that says a lot about where their team is at right now. But with all that being said, we're going to go into our first break of the night, and when I come back, we will be talking about the Oilers and the Stars and their Game 6 and how that series wrapped up when I come back from my first break of the night.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Alright guys, welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I would like to remind you guys that if you have any questions for me that you'd like to see me read out loud live on air, you can use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net to make it show up across the screen. Or if you just want to help out the creators here at the GSMC Sports Network, that would go a long way to doing so. But without further ado, we're going to get right into our second topic of the night, where we're talking about the Dallas Stars versus the Edmonton Oilers. And yes, this is your other Stanley Cup final contestant. It's the Edmonton Oilers winning this series in 6. They do a very great job at, closing out the Dallas Stars with a very similar or with the exact same scoreline as the Eastern Conference final Game 6 had. It was We talked about Bobrovsky stealing a game, and now we got to talk about Stuart Skinner absolutely stealing a game. Both these goaltenders were playing amazing, but Jake Onger and Stuart Skinner. But Jake Onger didn't face that many shots. That 2 goals is very misleading when you think about he only faced 10 shots in the entire game. That is this is an ESPN stat, but I gotta say it. That is the lowest amount of shots on goal in a series clinching win for a team of all time in NHL history. And I mean, of course it is. 10 shots on goal for a win. How many teams win with only 10 shots on goal? Not many. There's probably only a handful of times all season. I wouldn't be shocked if there was not a single time all season that a team won with only 10 or less shots on goal. I probably should have looked that up beforehand because I knew I was going to talk about this, but I did not, and now I'm definitely curious, and I will look that up after. But yeah, I mean, the Edmonton Oilers didn't play any offense in this game and still get 2 goals. They scored twice on their first 3 shots of this game. So Stuart Skinner stole this one. He was amazing. He was lights out. Stuart Skinner was fantastic in this one. I think we have him as our second star of the night here. Connor McDavid would be the first one. We'll talk about him when we go back. But Stuart Skinner, we got to talk about right now. 34 saves on 35 shots again. That's an above 9. It's a 971 save percentage. Man, this guy, the last 2 games really prove that he is the Edmonton number 1 goaltender, and he deserves to be in that cage over Calvin Pickard. You know, last series against the Vancouver Canucks, he was having a stinker. He was having a rough one. So they go to Calvin Pickard, and he plays well. But they go back to Stuart Skinner, and I was, it was a decision that I was curious about. I didn't think that was the right one, honestly. And I think I vocalized my opinion on this podcast that I thought that Calvin Pickard would be a better goaltender in the cage than Stuart Skinner. And, man, I was proven wrong. And I can admit when I was proven wrong, and I absolutely was here. Stuart Skinner, unbelievable, man. 34 saves on 35 shots against. This guy willed his team to the win here, especially when – I mean, that tells a story about the possession. The Stars had the puck for a lot of this game. They dominated this one. They should have won this one. This is just one that you look back. I mean, what else are you going to do? Put more shots on net? Or more than 35? Maybe, what else are you going to do? They had the puck most of this game. They had more shots on net. They outshot them by 25. And they couldn't get it done. So, unfortunate for the Dallas Stars, but very fortunate for the guys north of the border. This is the first time a Canadian team has been in a Stanley Cup final since they were in 2006. I'm not counting the Montreal Canadian Stanley Cup final in 2021 because that was the COVID year, and they were playing in an all-Canadian division, so they were guaranteed to at least make the conference finals. So I don't count that one as much as other people do. The Edmonton Oilers really deserve this one. It was fantastic all around. Let's get into the game breakdown here now. Connor McDavid. Okay. now here's where we talk about Connor McDavid. He is the greatest player on planet Earth, and it's not disputable. If you want any evidence, watch the first goal of this game. I can't show it, of course, because of copyrights infringement, but absolutely astonishing what he did with this first goal. They're on the power play. He gets the puck. He skates it to the pretty much low left dot, right, right next to the goalie. There are 3 defenders kind of in a C around or in a like upside down U around the cage or around the goal. He toe drags towards the slot. All right, he is a lefty stick, so he toe drags towards the slot. There's a defender on his stick, so he backhands in between the second and third defender on his right. Now he goes to a backhand, absolutely roofs the shot, and it's perfectly placed. Goes right above Jake Onger. Jake Onger doesn't have a chance on this one. This is the greatest goal I've seen probably all year. Connor McDavid. I mean, this was silky. This reminds you of how much better this guy is than everybody else, and he is much better than everybody else. This is the greatest player in the NHL, the greatest in my opinion, the most skilled hockey player that's ever touched the ice. That guy is something special. He every game he comes out and he does something incredible, and that was his doing something incredible. He gets a point on both goals that they score in this game, a goal and assist in this one. The second goal for the Edmonton Oilers came a little bit later. I think it was a couple minutes after this one. And it's Zach Hyman that gets the goal from Evan Bouchard and Connor McDavid. That's the stat line that we've seen all series long. It's Hyman from McDavid and Bouchard, or McDavid from Bouchard and Nuge, or insert player there. Bouchard and McDavid. This was a takeover series for these guys. I talk about flow state a lot. Just being in that state of everything you touch turns to gold, basically, and they were in that state. And Connor McDavid was in this state. On their first 3 shots of the game, they scored 2 goals in this one. So, stinker from Jake Oettinger, but, not really his fault here. The Edmonton Oilers were just on a different level. And they didn't continue with the offense production. They only get 10 shots on net. They only get 2 shots on net in the entire third period, and they still win the game, and they're impressive in doing so. And you got to give all the credit in the world to the Edmonton Oilers for taking that Western Conference final. You see the picture on the screen right here with McDavid and Draisaitl hugging each other right in front of the I always get the two mixed up, the Prince of Wales and the Clarence S. Campbell. One's for each conference. I think that's the Clarence S. Campbell. When I take my break, I'll look that up and get myself right on that. But I always mix them up. I have since I was a little kid. But right in front of the Western Conference Final trophy, they don't touch the trophy. If you guys don't know, it's a long-standing tradition that there's a curse if you touch the trophy. Recent memory shows that there's not. It's been like 50-50 for teams touching the trophy and not touching the trophy, and it's been like no correlation with winning the cup and not winning the cup. But for a very long time, a lot of teams refused to touch the trophy because it meant that you would lose the Stanley Cup final. Teams have definitely debunked that since then. But yeah, in this game, it was dominant from the top end talent of the Edmonton Oilers, and we talk about it in the series preview, and we talk about how that needs to happen. So I'll be a big man. I'll respect my predictions I made were very wrong when it came into these. I was perfect on predictions coming into the conference finals. I got all 4 of the second round perfect. But when it comes to the conference final, I said Stars in 7 and I said Rangers in 6. Both of them did not happen. We have Oilers in 6 and we have Panthers in 6. So the opposite Stanley Cup final to what I expected. But let me tell you, this is one that I'm very, very excited for. When I preview this one, you're going to see how excited I am for this, because I think these two teams match up perfectly. And I think that it's going to, blockbuster television is what we're in store for. So the Edmonton Oilers take this one 2-1. The Dallas Stars score in this one off of Mason Marchment goal midway through the third period. There was a little bit of life on the Dallas Stars bench when they scored that one, but nothing came from it, and they just kind of they fizzled out into elimination land with the New York Rangers on the other side and the plentiful of other teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs to not be contending for the ultimate trophy in sports, the Stanley Cup. Most people say the hardest trophy to win in sports, and I am on that boat. I do believe it is the hardest trophy to win in sports. Both of these teams have been so close in the past. Oilers making a Western Conference final a couple of years ago, and the Dallas Stars making it to the Cup final in 2020, I believe, was when they played the Tampa Bay Lightning. I always get those two mixed up. It was the Lightning versus the Stars and Lightning versus the Canadiens in 2020 and 2021. I think 2020 was when it was the Stars Lightning, pretty sure. So yeah, for the Edmonton Oilers, it's a huge result. First time being back in the Cup final since 2006. 5-time Cup champions, one of the most historied franchises in the NHL. Not a lot of teams have 5 or more cups. There's the Oilers, there's the Blackhawks, there's the Bruins, Red Wings, Maple Leafs, Canadiens. and that's the list, and that's it. So for the Edmonton Oilers to be on that list is very special. Now they have a chance to make 6 and tie the Boston Bruins at 6. So it'll be very impressive if they are able to do so. Of course, winning 5 Stanley Cups with Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player to ever live, helps them out a lot in their resume on the resume factor. But for the Edmonton Oilers, very impressive result. 2-1, taking the Western Conference Final. They are going to the Stanley Cup Final, playing for the big trophy against the Florida Panthers. What a great matchup we are in store for. So when I get back from my second break, we are going to be talking about the Florida Panthers run to the playoff, what their season looked like, how they got here, and how many games it took to do so, and what players really willed them to this point of their season. So I'll be right back for my second break, and excited to talk about that.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, guys, welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm excited to talk about the Florida Panthers, their playoff run, and how they got to this point in the season, as it has been a very great run for them. The Florida Panthers have taken down the New York Rangers, as we just talked about, in 6 games. A fantastic series where their defense really dominated, really showed the world what they can be. But before that, it was the Boston Bruins in the second round. They deal with them in 6 games as well. That series was a fantastic one. Showed us really what the Florida Panthers could be when it comes down to these playoffs. That they have that Stanley Cup Finals in them, really run in them. Being the Bruins as they did, they took a heartbreaking game 1 there, losing, was it 6-1, I think it was, and then came back, won 5-1 the next game, 5-2 in game 3. Bruins took game 4, and then in 5 and 6 they were able to deal with the Florida Panthers. Or was it? I think the Florida Panthers were up 3-1, so I think the Bruins actually took game 5. But nevertheless, the Florida Panthers showed a lot of determination in that series. Being able to beat the Boston Bruins is not an easy task. Very physical series, very hard fought one, fast series, fantastic goaltending to beat Jeremy Swayman as they did, who was having a lights out playoff run up to that point, was very impressive for them. So for the Florida Panthers, back-to-back 6 game series. And then in round 1, they deal with their Florida rivals right across the way from Sunrise in, I believe it's in St. Pete, not actually in Tampa Bay, is where the Tampa Bay Lightning are located. And they beat them in 5 games, dominated the Tampa Bay Lightning. Very impressive as well. The Tampa Bay Lightning, a little bit fall from grace from their, perennial cup runs that it seemed that they were in store for. Nikita Kucherov didn't have the best series in this one. And the Florida Panthers really look great. 5 games in against Tampa Bay. 6 games against Boston. 6 games against the Rangers. This is the first series that they don't have home ice advantage for against the New York Rangers, and they deal with them in 6 no matter what. And now they're going against the Edmonton Oilers, and they have home ice advantage again. So Florida's been a great spot. That barn's been rocking the entire postseason. It's been great. So the Panthers, it took them, 12 plus 5, it's 17 games to get to this point. Very efficient playoff run. So for the Florida Panthers, they have been fantastic all season. And when it came down to the regular season, it was Sam Reinhart having an absolute breakout regular season. This is the best hockey we've ever seen him play. It was 57 goals in the regular season, one of the league leaders in goals. 94 points, didn't break that century mark in points, but he still played amazing the entire way nonetheless. It's Matthew Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk had 62 assists, so Matthew Tkachuk was Sam Reinhart's left wing, assisting a lot of those goals. It's 88 points for Matthew Tkachuk in the regular season, a plus 19. Alexander Barkov wins the Frank J. Selke Trophy, deservedly so in the regular season, 80 points, but it's plus 33, played amazing defense the entire year. And Alexander Barkov has been one of the best centers in the NHL this year and proves it. Carter Hagee was their fourth leading scorer, 34 goals and 72 points in 76 games. Vladimir Tarasenko played amazing for them, 23 goals in 76 games. Sam Bennett, and then here's where the drop-off kind of starts here. Sam Bennett gets 41 points in 69 games. Evan Rodriguez, 39 points in 80 games. Gustav Forsling, 39 points, tied with Evan for 7th on the team in 79 games. But he's a plus 56 in the regular season, dominating on the defensive side, not out there for a lot of goals against. Gustav Forsling was really great all year. Aaron Ekblad only played in 51 games in this season, didn't get it rolling until late. Gets 18 points. It's one of his worst seasons of his career, but they haven't needed him to be spectacular. He is still a plus 27 in those 51 games. So Aaron Ekblad, still a very impressive season. Plus 27 is very impressive. So when it goes down the board, they didn't get great production out of Kevin Stenlund, 15 points. Nick Cousins, 15 points in 69 games. But still, this team was really great. From top to the bottom, just consistent scoring. Sam Reinhart, 57 goals, really helps. And when it comes down to goaltenders, of course, it's Sergei Bobrovsky that led the way. No Spencer Knight all season for the Florida Panthers. So he had a 2.37 goals against average, 9.15 save percentage. He was spectacular this regular season. These numbers back up his Vezina candidacy, deservedly so. Goes 36, 17, and 4 in his 58 games started. Very, very, very impressive. Very impressive. Sergei Bobrovsky was. He was only yanked from one game all season. He posted 6 shutouts. Dominated, really, had 2 assists as well. So there's a reason he's a Vezina candidate, and he definitely can win it. It's between him, Igor, and I think Jeremy Swayman is the 3rd Vezina candidate. So deservedly so for Sergei Bobrovsky. I think if you're going to give the trophy to anyone, this might be recency bias, but Sergei Bobrovsky did just outduel Igor Shesterkin. So it's not a postseason award, though, so you can't really take that into account. But it's still on these guys' minds, so it might go to him. Though I think their voting might be up. But in the playoffs, it's been kind of the same guys that are leading the way. Sam Reinhart isn't dominating. It's actually Matthew Tkachuk, over a point per game. He is the 4th leading point getter in the playoffs so far. He's tied with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, right behind the Oilers' big 3 in McDavid, Draisaitl, and Evan Bouchard. But it's Matthew Tkachuk at 19 points in 17 games played, a plus 5. He's still been very good. Carter Hagee, 9 goals in 17 games, 17 points. Alexander Barkov, 17 points in 17 games, plus 0 though. So that might be something that he needs to turn around and kind of be off the ice. But Gustav Forsling, plus 11 in the postseason. This top pair with Ekblad and Forsling has been amazing from regular season to postseason. Plus 11 and plus 9 respectively for those guys. Aaron Ekblad hasn't gotten on the score sheet, but he hasn't had to. He's been dominant defensively, kind of like that Darnell Nurse type. And of course, it's Sergei Bobrovsky, 2.2 goals against average, 908 save percentage. He's won 12 games in this postseason. He has a shutout. He has an assist, doing it all. Played in every game for the Florida Panthers, every minute for the Florida Panthers. He's been lights out. Sergei Bobrovsky, so impressive. But yeah, I mean the points have been, the top 6, of course, in Tkachuk, for Hagee, Barkov, Reinhart, Lindell, and Bennett have been very good. But then when you get into the depth, they aren't really scoring, but they are providing rare. On occasion they provide, and they're very needed goals when they do provide. So Florida Panthers are a very solid team from top to bottom. This shows it. They've been fantastic all year, and really when you talk about in the regular season, they were the 5th best team in the NHL, only behind the Rangers, Stars, Hurricanes, and Jets, and they tied the Winnipeg Jets in all categories. Tied them in every category. Going into the postseason, the Jets had won 8 games in a row. What a disappointing postseason it was for the Winnipeg Jets. We'll talk more on that in the offseason. That's not a conversation right now. We're only in happy land right now, talking about the Florida Panthers, who's going to the Stanley Cup Final. Florida Panthers, though, 110 points. A lot of teams broke that 100 mark. There were 10 teams over that 100 mark in points on the season, and of course, the Florida Panthers led the Atlantic Division, and now are the top seed in the Stanley Cup Finals, going against the 9-seeded Edmonton Oilers. They were dominant in goals against, posting the second best goals against in all the NHL, only behind the Winnipeg Jets. Once again, very disappointing postseason for them. They were the second best away record in the NHL, only trailing the Dallas Stars. And they had a pretty good goals for record, about 10th, around there in 10th in goals for, scoring 268. They're a plus 68 in goal differential. That was the best in the NHL, dominated on both sides of the ice, doing it without Aaron Ekblad for almost half the year too. So very impressive year for the Florida Panthers, from regular season onto the postseason. You can see how they got to this position. They won the East last year. They are very deservedly so in the Stanley Cup Final. Very excited to see how they play in the Stanley Cup Final. They are the favorites in this Cup Final as well. So we're going to see how this one plays out. But now we're going to talk about their opponents in the 4th segment of the night, talking about the Oilers, their path to the final, and what their regular season and postseason have looked like up to this point.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're getting right into our 4th segment of the night, talking about the Edmonton Oilers, their path to the final, as we just got finished talking about the Florida Panthers and how they ended up here, talking about their road to the Cup. It was, of course, disposing of the Dallas Stars in 6 games. Very great series that was by the Edmonton Oilers. They were very great in 5-on-5, which hasn't really been their MO up to this point, but they get it done 5-on-5. Before that, in the second round, it was the Vancouver Canucks 4-3 series win. This was a really weird series, as it was just back and forth. It goes Vancouver, Edmonton, Vancouver, Edmonton, Vancouver, Edmonton, but they broke that in Game 7, won that one 3-2 after a 5-1 Game 6 win. Vancouver goes on to win that Game 5. I believe that was on the road as well. They won that Game 5. And it didn't matter. The Edmonton Oilers won the next 2 games with a 5-1 win, 3-2 win, and it is the Edmonton Oilers that take that series in 7. And before that, they absolutely disposed of the LA Kings. I mean, this series wasn't even close. Looking at the games, it was a 7-4 win by the Oilers, 5-4 OT win by the Kings, 1-1. Okay, maybe it's close. 6-1 Edmonton, 1-0 Edmonton, 4-3 Edmonton. They absolutely disposed of the LA Kings for the 3rd year in a row in the first round. Disappointing once again by the LA Kings, but what are you going to do about it? So they get to the Cup playing one more game. Playing only one more game than the Florida Panthers. Their record is 12-6, opposed to the Florida Panthers 12-5. But that just means the better stats for their skaters, of course. But yeah, the Edmonton Oilers have been dominant, just like the Florida Panthers have been. That Vancouver Canucks series was a great one between them and the Edmonton Oilers. It showed a lot. With Edmonton, I didn't think that they could do it 5-on-5, and they proved at the end of that series that they could. That was, midway through that series, they were at a 45% power play percentage, and that's what really carried their offense. But they didn't get a power play goal for like 5 games straight through the Dallas Stars series, and it didn't matter. The Edmonton Oilers were fantastic in both of the series. So, yeah, they have a great playoff run. In the regular season, they were fantastic this year. I mean, we talked about Sam Reinhart having a career year with, 57 goals and 94 points? Connor McDavid had 100 assists and 132 points. I'm so impressed every time I look at this that he had 100 assists because, I mean, Leon Draisaitl only 41 goals, and of course he's not on the same line as McDavid for most of the time, both of them being centers. You only see them on the ice when it is the power play. He gives Zach Hyman 54 goals. Look at how many of Zach Hyman's goals were not assisted by Connor McDavid. It's in the single digits. That's how insane this pairing, this link up was all year. McDavid just put the puck right on Hyman's stick as he was far side on any goalkeeper that they played. Sorry, there's a fly right there. On any goalkeeper that they played, and it just it worked to perfection. I mean, those two played lights out, and I mean their entire team played very well offensively. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins gets 67 points in 80 games with 49 assists. Once again, I said Leon Draisaitl, 41 goals. He eclipsed the century mark in points in the season, 106. McDavid, only playing 76 games, gets 132. He's up for the Hart Memorial Trophy, and he definitely could win it. Of course, that is the MVP of the regular season, for those of you that don't know. He definitely, if they win this series, he is the likely candidate for Conn Smythe as well. I mean, this is his team. This is his team, and we're seeing him dominate. And this is Connor McDavid in the prime, in his prime. He's been fantastic all year. Darnell Nurse was probably their most disappointing player throughout the regular season. The guy makes $9.25 million, only 32 points and a +3. What's he good for? Sorry. Not really. I mean, he's pretty great. He was, in the Dallas Stars Game 6, that was the first time I looked at him and was like, whoa, that's a good hockey player. And Darnell Nurse, he had like 6 hits in the opening period. He was great in that game, but that was the first time I really looked at him and was impressed. Down the board, I mean, Corey Perry in 54 games, only 22 points. Sam Carrick, 16 points in 77 games. Their depth does not score a lot. Connor Brown, Matthias Janmark, who have turned provider in the postseason. Those guys have been playing pretty well, but not getting it done really in the regular season. Matthias Ekholm was great this year, 45 points in 79 games. Of course, Evan Bouchard was amazing, over a point per game for him, 82 points in 81 games. So for this Edmonton Oilers team, it was fantastic production out of Connor McDavid, 132 points. I mean, that's already 40 points more than anybody on the Florida Panthers. So already you have that production. And I mean, of course, he wills his team to victory once again in the playoffs for the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, it's Connor McDavid leading the way. All skaters in the NHL, 4 points, 31 in 18 games. What are we doing here? This guy's silly. Leon Draisaitl, 28 points in 18 games. What are we doing? This guy's silly. He's at an assist per game. Connor McDavid, almost 2 points per game. Evan Bouchard, 27 points in 18 games as a defenseman, a +14. He's been lights out this postseason. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 20 points in 18 games. He's the fourth best skater in the postseason. Zach Hyman, tied for 6th, I believe, in points amongst skaters with 18. He has 14 goals. That does lead the way in all skaters in this postseason. Evander Kane, 8 points in 18. It's a big fall off, but Matthias Ekholm gets 7 points in 18. That's more production than you saw in the regular season. It's Warren Fogle has been bad. Darnell Nurse, a minus 13 in this postseason. Anyways, moving on, Ryan McLeod has been pretty bad in the postseason. Only 1 point in 17 games played. I throw so much shade at Darnell Nurse. He deserves it. That guy is making $9.25 million per year. He can take some ridicule from me. 3 points and a minus 13 in 18 games that's tough for your number one defenseman. But Evan Bouchard has been great. That guy makes $5 million less than Darnell Nurse a year. I'm allowed to give crap to Darnell Nurse. It's been the Oilers' top five, really first line power play that's getting this done. It's McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, Nugent Hopkins, Zach Hyman. Their power play's been at an insane rate, and it's because of those five players. When you get all five of them on the ice at the same time, good things happen, and you're seeing that. When it comes to the regular season, that's what I was gonna say. The Edmonton Oilers were the 9th best team in the regular season, 104 points. They were 49, 27, and 6. That is a points percentage of 634. They had the 4th best goals for per game at 3.56 goals for per game, 292 goals for overall, and goals against per game. They were actually pretty good defensively. They were number 10th in the league, goals against per game, 288. Points differential was pretty great for them. Their power play percentage was 4th best in the league. We talked about those guys being on the ice together. It's 26.3%. It's ridiculous. Their penalty kill, though, was pretty impressive as well. Operating as the it was actually pretty bad. Never mind. 79.5% on the power play. The 20th best penalty kill in the league. So it wasn't that great, actually. But offensively wise, they were fantastic. You look at their roster, and that is kind of duh. But it is very impressive what they're able to do offensively. When it comes down to the Edmonton Oilers, they definitely match up with the Florida Panthers very well. We talked about how great Florida Panthers were defensively, 2nd best team defensively in the NHL, while the Edmonton Oilers are the 4th best team offensively. So these teams match up so well. I think on the other end, it's around 10th for each of them. For goals for per game for the Florida Panthers, it's 11th, and goals against per game for the Edmonton Oilers, it's that was the other way. For the Edmonton Oilers, it's 10th for goals against per game. I was looking at goals against per game, and I accidentally inserted it by the wrong way, and it was the Columbus Blue Jackets as number 1. They gave up a lot of goals this year, 363. Yeah, that's why they were one of the worst teams in the NHL. Anyways, we're talking about these two teams in the Cup. But yeah, the Edmonton Oilers are a fantastic team offensively, and you really see how they got to this point. They deservedly so are in the Stanley Cup final. When I come back from my 4th and final break of the night, we're going to be talking about the Oilers and the Panthers, how they match up directly against each other, who are the keys to the series for each player. But I won't give you guys my picks and predictions for this series. I will be doing that later in the week, as we do have 3 days until Saturday, the first game of this series, to talk about this series. So I'll give you guys those on Friday, but we're just going to be talking about the preview of the series in our 5th segment. Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're getting into our fifth and final segment of the night where we will be talking about the key matchups to this series and a preview and see how these teams match up against each other. We're going to get right into the Edmonton Oilers and their keys to this series, and the number one key is Connor McDavid. This guy needs to play like the best player on the ice every time he's out there. This is the biggest 7-game stretch of his career. He needs to win this Stanley Cup Finals. Who knows if he'll get this great of a shot again in his career. It is the hardest trophy to win in sports for a reason. You could only get one shot at this. The star-studded Tampa Bay Lightning team only got 2 cracks at winning a cup. So you could really see how hard it is. And you know, for the Edmonton Oilers and for Connor McDavid, it's not like the 80s when Gretzky won his 5. It's the hardest thing to do in sports for a reason. There are, let's look at the regular season this year. Let's see how many teams coming into this postseason we legitimately thought had a chance at the Cup. New York Rangers, yeah, President's Trophy winner, they definitely could have won the Cup. Dallas Stars, 113 points, yeah, they were 2 games away from making the Cup final. Carolina Hurricanes, oh yeah. They definitely could have won the Cup. They're a fantastic team from top to bottom. Winnipeg Jets, coming into the postseason, we thought that team could have done something. Of course, they were horrid, but they definitely could have done something. And going up against the Colorado Avalanche in the first round is no easy task. But 110 points for the Winnipeg Jets in the regular season, they definitely could have won the Cup. Florida Panthers, they're on the other side. They definitely could have won the Cup. Vancouver Canucks, they took this Oilers team to 7 games. That Canucks team is a very good team. They were a Thatcher Demko, him being healthy away from probably winning that series. I think that could have been the difference in any of those games. So, Winnipeg Jets, Florida Panthers, Canucks, we're at 6 right now. Boston Bruins, okay, I'll give you that. I never thought that they could win the Cup. Colorado Avalanche, I did think that they could win the Cup. With Valeri Nichushkin, I think that they win that series against the Stars, too. Everything changed for them when that series got flipped upside down. The Edmonton Oilers definitely could win the Cup. Toronto Maple Leafs, everybody believed that they could win the Cup. Okay, Kings, nobody really thought that they could. Predators, nobody really thought that they could. Vegas Golden Knights, that team definitely could have won the Cup. And then I think maybe the Tampa Bay Lightning are the last team that you could really argue could have won the Cup here. That's what, 12 teams, 11 teams could have won the Cup? It's very hard. It is very hard to be one of the best teams in the NHL. So I think that this is a big series for Connor McDavid. What you basically did is you narrowed that 11 teams that could have won the Cup down to 2 now. Only the Oilers and only the Panthers can win the Cup. If you look at that just mathematically there, that's a 50-50 chance of him, adding to his legacy and being a Cup champion. And he needs it. Can't be the greatest of all time if you never won a Stanley Cup, if you never won a champion. Name me one greatest of all time player that has never won a championship in their sport. It doesn't exist. So, for Connor McDavid, this is absolutely a legacy, postseason. We talked about it, I think it was a couple weeks ago going into the Dallas Stars series, that he needed this. And he definitely still does need it. So that's my first key. Second key is Stuart Skinner. Talk about the goaltenders a lot, and we talk about them a lot for a reason. He was lights out in the end of the Dallas Stars series. He needs to continue to do this because Sergei Bobrovsky is not letting up goals. And whether you believe that that's Sergei Bobrovsky or if that's the fantastic defense of the Florida Panthers, they're not letting up goals. So Stuart Skinner needs to not let up goals as well. Although you have a better offense, but your better offense only just got 10 shots on goal. In a game 6, in a closeout game, you don't think that that's gonna, it was such an anomaly. How many posts did they hit? They missed the net on like 30 different occasions. Their shot attempts were pretty close to Florida Panthers shots attempts, so they just missed the net so much in that game. But yeah, Stuart Skinner needs to come in big. That's my second key for the Edmonton Oilers. And then my third key is between a lot of things, I think you could go with Evan Bouchard here. I think you could go with the depth forwards maybe stepping up. I think you could go with their power play, but I ultimately do go with Evan Bouchard. I think he is my third biggest key for the Edmonton Oilers. I think this defenseman has been playing lights out, and I think he needs to step up and play lights out, because the rest of the defensive core for the Edmonton Oilers is horrid. I mean, let's look at their postseason stats. Evan Bouchard, 27-18. Yeah, that's great. Matthias Ekholm, 7-18. Okay. Brett Kulak, 5-18. Okay. Cody Ceci, 4 points in 18. Darnell Nurse, 3-18. Oh, that guy sucks. And you know, Vincent Desharnais is probably your sixth defenseman, and that guy has 1 point in 15 games played. So when it comes to offensive production by defensemen, I talk about this a lot. You're going to need that. You're going to need a horse on the blue line, and Evan Bouchard is absolutely it for the Edmonton Oilers, really picking up where Tyson Barrie left off for the Edmonton Oilers, and is so good offensively. So 27 points in 18 games played. He needs to continue that production. He right now is at a 27 points in 18 games played. That's what I just said. Never mind. He's at 1.5 points per game production. So he needs to continue with that. He's been impressive. Now, looking on to the other side is the Florida Panthers. And my number one key to this series for them is Matthew Tkachuk. It's the superstars on both ends of the ice as my number one keys. McDavid, respectfully, for the Oilers, and Matthew Tkachuk for the Florida Panthers. He is a fantastic player, Matthew Tkachuk. Over point per game in the regular season at 88 points, I think I said it was for him. He leads the way. He sets the tone for this Florida Panthers team. How he's playing, his physical nature and his, speed really sets the tone for this Florida Panthers team. So he needs to continue that, and that leads me right into my second key for the Florida Panthers. I think it's very simple for the Florida Panthers, whereas for the Edmonton Oilers, it's a little bit more. You need to talk about why. Physical play is my number two for the Florida Panthers. That's how they beat the Boston Bruins. That's how they beat the New York Rangers, is physical play. They made the other team uncomfortable, and they dominated on the boards, down low, in puck battles. They won the second puck every time. I mean, very impressive stuff from the Florida Panthers, all led by Matthew Tkachuk, by the way. That's why I say he sets the tone. This team really looks up to this guy. They look up to Alexander Barkov. They look up to Aaron Ekblad. And all three of these guys are really gritty players. Really, their entire core plays this way. Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart, Anton Lundell, Gustav Forsling. This entire team plays this physical and dominant nature, and they impose their will on the opponents. And that's what gets them to this point. And they need to not give up to the speed and talent of the Edmonton Oilers, and they definitely could. And that's what I would be worried about, is if the Edmonton Oilers just start doing fancy stick moves, trick moves, basically just sliding the puck every which way, making these guys overextend and put themselves out there, trying to go for a hit or something like that, try and go for the puck, and then they make them pay on the on the break. That's how the Edmonton Oilers win games in this series. So I would be worried about that. You can't miss hits, you can't miss stick checks, you can't miss. You need to be flawless in the Stanley Cup Finals. You need to be flawless. So this Stanley Cup final, I think these two teams match up so well, and I'm so excited for it. And I think the third and final thing is the fast play of the Florida Panthers. What are the Edmonton Oilers forwards known for? Their speed. Connor McDavid is the fastest skater in the NHL. Leon Draisaitl is fast. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is fast. Zach Hyman is fast. I mean, these guys are fantastic skaters, of course. They're some of the best skaters in the world. They need to continue to be, or the Florida Panthers need to run with them. They need to contend with them vertically. Make this a race, and I think the Florida Panthers would win that race, because I think that they have more stamina. I think that they are more, they have more of that physical nature in them to be able to have that durability and the endurance that they need to win this series. So this is why I say that these two teams match up so well. And there's so much to talk about in this series, but I cannot fit it all in this podcast. We are running a little bit over on the time. So thank you all for tuning in to the GSMC Hockey Podcast. That'll wrap it up for this first of 3 podcasts we're going to be coming at you this week with the talking about Stanley Cup Finals. A lot to talk about in this one, so I'm excited for this week. Going into Saturday, into Game 1, we're ready for it. Couldn't be more excited for the Stanley Cup Finals. I think we got 2 of the best teams in the NHL going battling it out, and I cannot tell you who's going to win yet, because one, I don't know. I haven't formulated an opinion on that, and 2, I do want to save that for Friday. So looking forward to the rest of the week, looking forward to Saturday. Thank you all for tuning in to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. If you guys like the show, don't forget to subscribe to the GSMC Sports Network or GSMC Podcast Network on YouTube. Your support does mean a lot to us, so if you do enjoy this content, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at GSMC Podcast Network. All the support means so much to us, so thank you guys once again, and have a fantastic evening from the GSMC Hockey Podcast.